Hey everyone, welcome in to a first of first, and that is brand new. As something that we will talk about is I'm starting off here now with something of, you know, a newness in terms of I'm going to do like a daily stream show where every 30 to 60 minutes, um, every day, weekday, I should say, I'll do a stream. It may not be on Friday, so really just Monday through Thursday. Monday through Thursday, do a stream where, I'll talk about various topics and teach you how to code and things like that. So we'll get started today, with the NFL right around the corner. We'll start with some fantasy football projections and get in our data sets that we need to be able to succeed. So let's get right into it. If you're new to R, thanks for coming in. Here's how to do some fantasy football projections. Now, this will be part of, something again, like I call the Frylytics playbook. And again, it's just daily coding. It shows you how to get certain things onto the screen or how to acquire certain things. So let's start. This video will show you how to scrape fantasy football projections. And within that is, let me actually share this link to everyone in the chat stream so we can get this ball rolling. All right, shared, and boom. All right, so if you're in Patreon, you get early access to this on a daily basis. So feel free to check it out. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Again, fantasy football are built on libraries. So we're actually going to be using 6 libraries. If you don't have them, just simply install that packages. And the 6 libraries are HTTR, JSON Lite, Tidyverse, NFL Readar, and then the last 2 are XML2 and Arvest. So again, feel free to install those if you don't have it. When you run this next call, which is the 6 lines, it's HTTR, the same 6 packages that I mentioned. If you run any of them and it says error, there's no package called this, then that means you need to install it. And again, to simply above, install dot packages, and then the name of the package. So we'll just run this. It might give you a warning message. It was built under, so like the R version I have, you might have a different version. That's fine. Message, no errors in sight. So we have this. Now, to save you time, we're gonna use a source function to get data from a website. So it'll be under my GitHub page. It allows you to source it. Looks like there's an error. One. So let me source. Now there's source URL, but there's certainly other ways to be able to do this. So, let's see. So while I figure out this error, let's do this. Yeah, I see. I put the wrong URL. Okay, so we'll put the right URL in here. raw.githubusercontent.com, and then my name. Um, Let me see if I can put it into the chat live stream. Or I should say the comments. I don't know if comments are enabled. If not, not a big deal. Um, there we go. So I put it in there for everyone who may be watching. Okay, so I have the raw data set. Now it might give you different things in terms of like warning messages or notes. But cool. Now you can see over here things are populated. So we have Scrape CBS, from CBS, Scrape ESPN, and then Scrape NFL. Let me know if you want me to add more. Those were the ones that were the easiest to put together in terms of code, to be able to scrape the projections. Now, that doesn't mean I can't do something like Yahoo, or some other leagues. I can use outside of Yahoo that I don't currently have, but um, feel free to let me know, and I will spend a little bit more time and grab them and maybe do another video like this. So we have like Draft CBS, Draft NFL, then we have Get Scrape Week, Get Scrape Year, players, and then rename vector. That's other ways to just be able to rename. And then this players data set comes from NFL Radar. And basically all it is it gets the NFL ID, the ESPN ID, and then allows us to get the GSIS ID, which then we can join off multiple data sets. So that way we can have all of ESPN, CBS, NFL.com, their ADP or rankings for various things. So let's get started. We'll just say ESPN. We'll call it and we'll say scrape ESPN. So we'll scrape ESPN. It might take a second or so. Again, scraping ESPN data. Please be patient. And it's done. So now we have ESPN, and it's pretty clean. So we have year, what site it's from, ESPN ID, the GSIS ID, player, position, team ID, the outlook. So like for ESPN fantasy football purposes, it gives you the outlook, the average draft position in terms of ADP. Again, this is PPR, so all of these examples will be PPR. Let me know if you want a non-PPR fantasy point projection system. I can do that as well. Just PPR was like the standard one. Uh, so being able to have those for these different sites, that's consistent. So all of these are PPR rankings. You will see a different amount of total point projections because of the number of games for one of the sites, but we can adjust that pretty easily. So we can see like their standard rank, their PPR rank. Um, though, as far as I know, okay, here's the first one where it's like a big difference by 6 points. So Devon Achane actually is higher on PPR ranks. That makes sense. their auction value. Again, if you're in, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do the standard draft leagues. But if you want me to do something for auction value, I can show you as well. Their overall rank in ESPN, again, PPR related, and their positional rank, again, PPR related. And then I think this was cool. So like ESPN has the players projected points or their 2024 PPR points. So you can kind of see like the difference, who's expected to rise, who's expected to fall. And then their projected fantasy points PPR on the ESPN layer. So now let's go ahead and grab CBS. I'll just scrape CBS. Now that data set will look a little bit different because you can see here where ESPN, all of the player projections by position are all on one page. However, for something like CBS, if you can see the URLs down here, you can see quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. It will scrape, but the end result will be instead of a data frame, it'll be a list. And so then we have to pull from that list. So it looks like it didn't pull any kicker data, but that's all right. We can work with it. Um, so we can just do like CBS QB, you know, CBS one, because it goes in order. So the first data set is quarterback, the second data set running back, third data set wide receiver, fourth data set tight end. So that's quarterback, CBS running back. Again, the second data set, CBS wide receiver, and CBS tight end. So now we have player projections, and you can see it's a little bit different. So like CBS player ADP change. This one, instead of going by percentage, it goes uh, by just raw number, and then it shows their highest ADP. So based on CBS draft, someone drafted Lamar Jackson fourth. Their lowest, someone drafted him 34th. Percent drafted, um, things like that. Projected passing yards, projected passing touchdowns, INTs, rushing attempts, rushing yards, touchdowns, fumbles lost, and then projected fantasy points, PPR. So with that being said, we have CBS by position, and then let's get the NFL.com as well. Same thing, scrape NFL, and then again, it's not all on one page, so we will have to scrape from different sites. So we'll basically replicate what we did earlier. Pull the list, format, NFL 1, NFL 2, NFL 3, and then NFL tight end, NFL 4. And this is again mostly from the different column formats. So we'll take QB again. We have NFL ADP. They're at this time it's not percent change, it's just average round. Again, NFL average salary. If for salary cap drafts, it has projected passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions. So from quick glance, let's look at Lamar Jackson, right? According to NFL.com, he has 16 games, going to throw for 3,600 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 INTs. But on here, he's throwing for 4,100 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 INTs. So it just gives you a general idea. Like, you can kind of do some statistical analysis within this and say, like, hey, what's his projected low? What's his projected high based on these ones? However, again, CBS does have them listed as 17 games. So all of these players playing 17 games. Uh, so we will have to adjust once we get to that point. And so we can just keep it on the same boat and just say mutate. And in this case, we will say, let's do CBS. No, we might have to do it 4 times over, and that's okay. So projected fantasy points PPR. Again, mutate like this. This percent sign forward or percent sign is known as a piping operator, and it's just basically to insinuate, hey, more code is coming. Like, don't finish the code just yet. To be able to run this next line of code, which we're just mutating this. So we will say CBS projected fantasy points PPR my thing CBS fantasy projected points PPR divided by games played. Because again, we want to get it down to 16 because all of these have them assuming playing 17 games, whereas this will get it down to 16. Because then if you take away one game, points. So then we'll just copy and paste this down for each position group, and then it will be adjusted. Actually, let's adjust gameplay to be GP minus. Assume that every player gets one extra game. So there might be some projections in there where they only play 15 games or 14 games. We'll just assume we'll take away a game for each player. So then we run that. 461, now it's 434. And again, it's based off 16 games instead of 17. Because again, most fantasy projection systems have their season ends before the final week of the season. But feel free, again, you can do the flip side of it if your goes more than 16 games. So now that we have this, all we want is the ADP. So we will take the player ADP for CBS, the projected fantasy points PPR. So then we'll add it onto here. I'll just create a new, say select from the dplyr package, and we'll say select site. Or I should say, you don't necessarily need site because it's already listed the player ADP and then the PPR. Well, let's do this. Get the GSIS ID, and we'll say CBS player ADP, and then the CBS projected fantasy points PPR. And we'll do it 4 times over. And then for NFL, we'll do something similar. So bear with me. We're going to show this now. Again, we can go back to yardage projections, but for now, we're just going to do raw fantasy point projections. How do they differ between different sites? And so we'll say that NFL ADP and then NFL projected fantasy points PPR. Oh, wait a minute. The GSIS ID is not showing up for NFL, which is fine. We can definitely do this. So left join, or we'll do it here. Yeah, for whatever reason, the GSIS ID does not appear for NFL. Well, maybe it appears for other positions. It does not. Okay. Again, that's fine. Um, so we'll say left join. The period, basically we're going to join the data sets together. So the period means the current data set, in this case the NFL running backs, and then we'll join players, but we don't want all the data from the players. All we really care about is the NFL ID and the GSIS ID. So NFL, and then we'll say by the NFL ID. So that way we can get that joined data set. So do that down. And same thing here. So that way we can join it to the other data set. So boom, 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 boom. And now it looks like we're getting errors. Huh. Yeah, it should appear. So let's see. Let's go back. Again, like this is part of it. Like it's not gonna be very clean, very perfect. I see. So the NFL IDs have actually quite changed. Um, because if you see here, the 2560757 for Lamar, it's a lot different than what it was. Oh, let's do players, NFL radar, load players. So we get the full data set, and maybe they have a different um, ID that can handle it. Now, if not, Lamar Jackson. So we notice that there's different NFL IDs. I know there's a defensive back named Lamar Jackson too. So how do we kind of get this alternative, right? Instead, we will say uh, display name for players and then position. And then, of course, the GSIS ID. We can actually say, actually, let's rename this. So within select, we can rename players too. So we'll rename this to player, and then I would assume position is just PI. So player. So now we're going to join by both player and position to be able to get that data set. What the difference is now, we're going to join by that data set so that way we have the GSIS ID. Boom, 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 boom. And now it should be fixed. So now we have the player GSIS ID, their ADP, and their projected fantasy points according to NFL. Now we'll just say like all, um, and we'll do what is called like, we'll just say a multi-join. So first we'll join the first data set, which is ESPN with or I should split this by position. So we'll do the same thing here. ESPN QB, ESPN dplyr filter POS equals QB. And then same thing for the other positions. So that way it'll come out a little bit cleaner. Running back, wide receiver, and then ESPN tight end, ESPN filter the tight end position. That way we have those positional groups. Oh, dplyr. There we go. So now we can do all QB, left join the ESPN QB with the CBS QB, and again, joined by that GSIS ID. And then do another join, and then say NFL QB by, or the code to know, okay, we're taking the data set that we have joined and creating that new data set with the other position. So then we'll go boom, 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 and just running back, wide receiver, tight end. Change all of these to running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then it should give you, if it matches multiple rows, not a big deal. Well, now we can go to like all running backs. I see. So I must have. No. Let's check QBs. Okay. So this might be a little. So let's rerun it. And we'll go boom. Wait for it to grab those projections. Make sure these are correct. Now we're still getting the same errors. But okay. So now we can see the different ADPs as well as the projected fantasy points. So like Saquon Barkley, great example here. ESPN has him projected for 325. NFL has him projected for 296. CBS, after adjusting for 16 games, has him projected for 297. I guess 298 for rounding. Whereas Jahmyr Gibbs has him 317, 300. So some of these ESPN has it a little bit higher than others in terms of position. So now we have the main core four positions. Let's see who has the biggest differences in terms of projections. And so let's see, max across. So now let's go into all QB, all QB, mutate, and we'll say like max value, or I should say max projection, and we'll say P max. And what P max is, it takes the maximum of multiple columns, which is what we're doing. So ESPN, projected fantasy points PPR, CBS, projected fantasy points PPR, and then NFL. And then same for the minimum. So min projection. This time it's P min, and we'll take those same. Another option we could do. And so that way we can get by each position, and you can look at the data set that way. Wide receiver, tight end. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Actually, let's just say diff max projection minus min projection. Now we get the difference. Now we can show by each position as well. So all QB, we can look who has the highest. So Daniel Jones. So NFL thinks he won't have as high, and that could just be solely from updates because CBS seems like they updated it with Daniel Jones being the starting quarterback. Same for Anthony Richardson. CBS updated it, so therefore he's a lot lower. Russell Wilson. So I would say truly Russell Wilson is the one that has kind of the biggest differential right now. And Jackson Dart because CBS thinks Russell Wilson will be the clear starter all season long. Same for NFL.com, but ESPN thinks they're about even. So again, you can kind of strip that out, or you can look at like Joe Burrow. CBS really likes is really overinflating guys. You can kind of see that. See like, okay, here's the max. So CBS typically has guys at the max versus at the minimum. And there's some guys without ADP, but it allows you to see that. Excuse me, something like running back. CBS thinks some of these guys will get 128 fantasy points. And maybe that's why there's the duplicates. Because they don't have an ID. There you go. So no ID. But then you see like Jacory, Krosky Merritt, CBS really high on them. NFL and ESPN, not really. Marion Hampton, here's a good one. Where the ADP across. So like the ADP has O'Marion Hampton at 44, NFL 50, CBS 40, but ESPN has him as clearly the highest thinking you'll get 259 fantasy points versus NFL having him at 225 and CBS really being bullish. And then you can kind of go from there. So let's see. Let me do, so if you don't have this package, GT, we can do a very basic table. Let's say library GT. If you don't have this library, and we'll say all wide receiver dplyr filter. So instead of doing it where we kind of look at it at this table, we can visualize. We'll just say is.na gsisid, and we'll just look at guys who do have an ADP. So let's do ESPN, for example's sake. So is.na ESPN ADP, or is.na NFL ADP, or as long as all of them are not NA. And then we will select the columns that we want. So let's say the NFL ADP. Now, so let's say select um, player, max projection, min projection, and then diff. So you can get the difference in between the three. Now, even before that, let's say we'll change up the max projection to be something like this, where it's saying case when max projection equals ESPN projected fantasy points PPR. Then we'll say paste 0 max projection, comma, parentheses, ES close parentheses, and boom. So then that way we have the case when for that one. And then we keep going down the line for each of the different ones. So we'll do this for max and min. So 6. So that way, when you create this table, it shows you, hey, here's the minimum projection based on this fantasy ranking. So I'll change this to ESPNNFL.com CBS. So everything was wrapped in the max projection. So when I originally did that, I forgot to add in the minimum projection. Now you can see it's fixed there. So again, it's dependent on team, but now you can say like we'll just take the first 5 instances and then we'll create a GT table. Actually, before we do that, let's round it. Let's round the max and minimum to 1 decimal place. So round max projection 1, and then same for the minimum projection, round, min, projection 1. Now we'll say GT, cab header, top 5 highest point differential for wide receivers, fantasy football. Subtitle will just say taking from ESPN, NFL.com, and CBS projections. Oh, need to load in GT first. There you go. Now, in the corner, it gives you an error. We can look into those. Let's see what the heck is going on. So when we look at it, then all wide receivers shouldn't be. It shouldn't give you this error. There's some that do, some that don't. Let's bring back the all wide receiver and then see, does it still give you the same error? It does. Obviously, there's a differential. So there's something that's changing it. Now let's take out this. All right. Just wanted to round it, but guess it won't let me. Either way, when you click on the zoom in button, it shows you, these are the 5 guys with the highest differential in terms of projected point differential for wide receivers in fantasy football based on ESPN, NFL.com, and CBS projections. I'll figure out why. Let's take this time to figure out why. So this is just bonus code, so I can figure out what the issue is. Because yeah, it takes the max and the minimum. I see, because it's technically an error for each of the different sites. So let's take each of these. We got to round them to 1. So we'll go down the line. So that's how it'll fix it. On NFL and CBS. Now we get to the final. There it is. Now, if you want to, let's say, instead of guys with certain ADP, let's say you want to change this, and let's say you want to do ADP is less than or equal to 20. Um, let's do ESPN or CBS player ADP less than 20, and then NFL player ADP is, excuse me, not NFL player ADP, NFL ADP. So who has the highest differential here? We can see that Puka Nakua, according to NFL.com, is going to have a projection of 274.2 fantasy points, but according to ESPN, 310. You can see that at least on this side, the minimum projection, ESPN's not involved, not in any of them. ESPN, it seems like they're inflating guys, but that helps you kind of understand what's going on there. And again, this is very basic. I can show you in a future video on how to put the player headshot with the thing and maybe even the team, just so you can see the different differences. Uh, Let me add one more thing. So in this, we'll say diff equals round diff 1. So it keeps it consistent. Yep, forgot the comma. And boom. Now, obviously, we'll have to change the title because it'll say top 5 highest with a draft ADP under 20. So now you get those guys, and now you can kind of look at it that way. So I'm going to help you kind of fantasy guys and see. It's like the ADP change can be also something to look at. So feel free to ask me in a future video if that's what you want, is maybe do this same thing but for ADP, or if you want to take what you've learned today and apply it for ADP this time, feel free to do so. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something out of this in grabbing fantasy football projections, and I hope you have a great